Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Miggy Writes Metal. Today I got an interesting video for you guys showing you how I mix bass and what's my approach to making pretty much a bass consistent throughout a metal track. Now, obviously per track these things will change, but these are the starting points that I use to at least get a good sounding bass track when I start writing a song, so let's jump into it. Alright, so here we are in Logic, and this right here is my bass track, and this is what we are listening to. I'm actually writing this for the intro of the channel, so when I go live, it'll be on loop with a video. So it'll be kind of cool. Stick around for it. But back to the video. So what I do for bass, simply put, I use MIDI bass. I would say maybe 95-96% of the songs that I write do use MIDI bass. I use real bass sometimes when a band calls for it. Sometimes I do like punk rock bands, and it's just better to get like a more real, organic kind of like sound. But most of the time, this is what I'm using for bass, and even on some punk rock bands, I still use like MIDI bass because it's just so malleable. But I use Djinnbass too. I found it to be one of the best sounding ones. This is modeled after a Dingwall 5-string bass. Pretty much using it on the DI setting. Now, when you do use the DI settings, there is no mixer for it, so you can't adjust these parameters. If you go to grit, you can adjust the compression, stuff like that, but I just like to use the DI. This actually really is important if you are recording yourself. And you're trying to like mix a track and you're wondering, hey, why is that sounding tight enough, especially for like low tune stuff. You want to go over here to the settings where it says preset and make sure that you check the tuning of your guitar. So whatever this is, the lower you go, the tighter those low notes will sound. For this song, it's in drop C. I know it doesn't really say it on it, but if I just go, I just find any kind of like C over here, let's just find it, this will work. And this is the sound that we have with the DI. Moving on to the chain, the next thing that I add is Parallax, one of my favorite bass plugins. Pretty much this has everything that you need to get a bass track sounding good. You got saturation, you got 3 bands, you got compression. This is the default setting. I do mess around a little bit with like the compression and the low end. I do boost it up a little bit, and the mids I kind of set depending per song along with the highs. But the biggest thing that I do here is that I cut 250 out. Now, I don't cut all of it out. I don't go like crazy, like probably like halfway. And because I want to keep a little bit of that 250 in there, just to give it a bit like low mid rumble to tie it in with the guitars a little bit better. I do like bass that is very present in a track. That is my philosophy. Anything down the middle, so snare, kick, vocals, and bass guitar are the main elements of a track. To me, the way that guitars work for me, they're just kind of like a spicing left and right that you throw in there to make it sound wide. But obviously, they still gonna sound good. But for me, if you give me a main element to really focus on, it's gonna be bass heavy, less guitar. So that's the way that I like my mixes. And then the 1000 boost here, this is really what I use to set how much bass I want to cut in the mix. So if I boost this up, you will hear a lot more clank out of it. If I cut it, and that might work for you depending on what you're doing. I boost it up just a little bit, and depending on the track that I'm listening to, I might bring that up or down depending on where I want to hear it. I don't normally want the bass like excessively loud, especially not the clank over the guitars. I try to keep them kind of balanced, but I do want to hear the bass bite in the track. Next on the chain, we have a pretty simple saturator. It's just the SSL. It is giving a bit of a volume boost, actually a lot of a volume boost, but we're not going into the red. So without it, it kind of distorts the lows a little bit, which I know is to some people that's a sin. I like the sound of a distorted low end. Not too much, don't go too crazy with it, but just a little bit of saturation can really help it like cut through like smaller speakers on your cell phone and stuff like that. So that's one of the reasons why I do it. I just think it kind of rounds off the tone a little bit better than it's sounding like you have clank and then low end following it. We move into the actual bus now. So on the bus, I have a few plugins over here. So let me turn these on, starting with the BG Bass plugin. So I'm going to go down the order with these as I play with you guys. So the BG Bass is a plugin from JST Tones, and it pretty much has got like a 3-band kind of compressor. I'm using it on the high end to kind of tame that clank from the bass a little bit. So without it, with it, it kind of like rounds the bass a little bit more, and it tames the clank, so it's not like overbearing on the ears. It's almost like, the way that I hear it, it kind of sounds like a de-esser, and it's doing like 5 dB, so it's pretty drastic. But for like that bite control, I like it. This is a good plugin. It just kind of worked for this. Next plugin is another compressor, and this one you guys will know. It's the LA2A, and this one is the one from Universal Audio. I love this plugin. I actually grew to love it because I never really understood the LA2A until I started using it like maybe like 6-8 months ago. I was like, you know what? Everybody's using the LA2A. Let me try it out and see what it does. I thought that it was just kind of like some of the versions of it just really distort too much, and I didn't like that. But this version is actually really clean, and I'm pushing this hard. It's pretty much a limit on the bass, so it's doing a lot. So we're going into like 20 dB right there, and it's really like bringing that needle down when that bass hits. So when it does clank, it kind of like pumps it. So that's kind of the effect that I want for this one. Yeah, this is pretty much a preset too. So if you actually go to the if you go to the settings, or you go to just find bass tamer, and all I did was adjust like how much of the ratio I want in it, and that's it. And I adjust a little bit of the volume. The next plugin is X Limit. There's another SSL plugin. It's pretty much just your basic limiter. Chops off peaks from the top. I use it on drums. I use it on bass. And all I have this here is to catch the clank from the LA2A. Whatever the LA2A is not compressing on the way down, this is kind of taming it. So it's not like overbearing. So you can see the LA2A. These are the peaks right there from the LA2A. And it's just kind of catching those to keep everything consistent. That's all that's doing there. And finally, one of my favorite plugins that I've talked about in the past is Anina. Now, Anina is an awesome plugin. It's pretty much a free frequency resonator suppressor. It's kind of like saying Soothe. It's the same thing as Soothe. And essentially what I use it, I said I sidechain it. I always sidechain it to my bus, to my whole drums, like the whole drum kit, not just the kick drum, because I kind of like what it does, you know, when it ducks the bass underneath the snare and stuff like that. So this is pretty much what it's doing. I got to play with the drum so you guys can hear it. It's a really cool plugin from CRQL Audio, Anina. Go grab it. It's free. I've literally told all of my producer friends about this because it's $250 for Soothe or free for Anina. I don't know. You guys decide if you guys are up to doing it, but I like Anina for what it does. It does a lot. That's one of the things that's all over my mixes, but that's not what we're here to talk about. So overall, this is our bass tone. And I remember I was telling you guys about this bass synth on here. It literally is a bass synth. So all this is just JST Sub Destroyer. And what I do with this is that I actually pitch it an octave down from whatever I'm at. This song is in drop C, so this is like a double drop C on the Sub Destroyer. If you don't have like headphones on, you might not be able to hear this. And all this is doing is just adding a bass layer. It gives it like that sub enhancement underneath. You could do this with some plugins, kind of like our bass will kind of do a similar thing. And I just tuck it underneath the bass, so it's not super loud in the mix, but without it, it kind of feels a little bit emptier and a little bit more anemic. Another thing to keep in mind is that I only use this on certain notes. Like if I have a guitar track where it's like really notey, but like the low end bass kind of like clanks every once in a while, I'll only add it to the low end notes. I don't put it on every single note. So on this case, in this case, it worked for like all of this, but normally that's what I'll do with it. I'll just add it to like the sub low or like the open string of the lowest note. I'm running that sub destroyer to a basic EQ, just cutting off all the crazy low in here to get more of the fundamental in here. As you can see, it's like really low. There's barely anything down there. So I just want to cut all that low end off. If not, I don't want none of that. So, and then I'm running that into an LA2A. It doesn't do much on the low notes, but when the higher notes come in, you'll see that it really ducks. Just kind of controlling the frequencies and bringing them all at the same level. And then the last plugin is just a gain that I have over here with the phase inverted so it fits with the bass. And that is how we do bass over here on Miggy Writes Metal.